NC State football keeps up the busy work coming out of the transfer portal. 2 more key additions to backfill key positions in the NC State defense.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's Tuesday show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Tuesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, the portal continues to turn in now a positive manner. We're getting so sick of this negative news that we got over the last couple of weeks, but NC State was able to pick up 2 more key defenders out of the transfer portal, both coming over from the Temple Owls, which is relevant because our new defensive coordinator DJ Eliot, that was his most recent college stop, and actually he has familiarity with one of these players. But the 2 new names to know, cornerback Jamal Johnson and edge, kind of an odd distinction. We'll touch more on that in a second, and that is Trey Thomas. We'll start here with Jamal Johnson. He is a corner. He had 2 stops actually before NC State. He played at Charleston Southern for 2 years, Temple last year, and now joins the Wolfpack for 2025. I had seen a couple comparisons thrown around for Johnson to players that we already have on the roster, and one I think that sticks the most. He kind of reminds me of Devin Marshall, who had a very solid year for the Wolfpack, joined us from Villanova last year, which is a relatively large leap from the FCS level to the ACC level. But Jamal Johnson has not only excelled at the FCS level, he excelled at the G5 level, and now he brings his talents to the P4 level in the ACC.
Ball is ball, folks. Ball is ball. This young man has consistently gotten better, consistently proven himself, consistently proved he was under-recruited. So I'm very excited about Jamal because, again, this Eliot system is going to mandate a lot of man coverage. A lot of man coverage. I am not castigating anybody or saying that the corner's leaving or running from the ground or anything like that, because as much as Tony Gibson blitzed, he left those guys on the island a lot as well. But this is going to be a situation where these corners are going to be asked to do some covering at a very, very high level. And so with a guy like Jamal coming in, a guy who's been in the system, a guy who's played all that, man, a guy who said, hey, this is going to be me and you all night long, brother. We're going to be dancing. We're going to be going toe-to-toe, blow for blow all night. He's a guy that is accustomed to that and knows that. And at the end of the day, even if the address changes, it's still the same game.
Jamal and Trey Thomas, we'll touch on here in just a second. They're joining us from a Temple team that is 3-9. And I saw Inside Pack Sports also talking about this earlier, and I agree with the point. It's way more important that you're picking up players that fit your scheme rather than where they're coming from. Jamal Johnson and Trey Thomas are actually 2 of only 3 Temple defenders that played the entire season. So we're picking out 2 of their best players on that defense, although they struggled, to fit them into a new scheme here at NC State. And I think now rolling over to Trey Thomas, there's a little bit of a distinction on whether he's going to play linebacker or whether he's going to be an edge on the defensive line. The beauty about Trey Thomas, he has the ability to do both. And I've seen a particular designation tossed around, Kenton. Hopefully you can shine a little bit of light on it. But I've heard him referred to as a bandit linebacker. What does that mean, and how might he portray that at NC State?
So remember when we talked about the 3-4 hybrid and how one guy was always going to be kind of walked down for a majority of the game, and he can drop a lot more than a traditional defensive end, but he's going to have some responsibilities in setting edges and pass rushing as well. That is what Trey Thomas is going to be asked to be. Now, we're talking some real inside baseball right now, so if you're not a person who understands football at a high level, I understand you wanted to, not at this point, but stick with me if you will here. There's a lot of different distinctions for positions that are never officially listed. For example, rover linebacker is another one of those positions where you don't hear much about it. But if you would, imagine it like a sliding scale, right? Where the furthest left is defensive end, the furthest right is safety, and right in the middle is linebacker, right? So if we're talking about, again, safety over here to your right-hand side and defensive end over here, a Bandit is much closer to that defensive end linebacker hybrid, as opposed to a Rover, which you see in the 4-2-5 and 3-3-5, which is much closer to that safety kind of position there. So we're looking at a guy that, again, he's going to be asked to be on the line of scrimmage. He's going to be asked to, come downhill and do some good things in the running game, but also pass rushing is going to be one of his responsibilities as well. And we've got some holes there. We've got some holes. In terms of talking about edge rushing, Davin Van was phenomenal. Lights out. 1 of 1 to some extent. And guess what? He's gone. He's timed out of the system. We have not gotten our wish of everybody getting a 5th year of eligibility yet. So he's done. With that being said, this is a moment where, again, Trey knows the system. He knows the responsibilities that are going to be asked of this type of linebacker. So he's not walking in saying, wait a minute, Bandit, I've never done a high amount of pass rush in my life. Or, what, Bandit, I've never dropped back. I'm a go forward guy. I go forward. You tell me go forward, I go forward. That's it. He's not one of those guys. He knows the system. He's played in the system, and he's played specifically the Bandit designation, which, again, if you're playing like NCAA or Madden, there is no position for that.
Right.
But it does exist in football.
Yeah, when we've already discussed the concepts surrounding the DJ Eliot hybrid 3-4, in that so heavily focused on forcing inordinate amounts of pressure, disguising blitzes, and sending 4 down linemen in a pass rush, sometimes sending 3 and a linebacker on a consistent basis. Trey Thomas is such a good pickup for that scheme in particular because he could do both. You might think he's going to rush on one play where in fact he drops back into coverage, or he can play in the box. He can rush the quarterback. He can do a little bit of everything. And that type of versatility, especially in a guy that's already familiar in this system, he played under DJ Eliot, it feels like a really good get for NC State at this time of the cycle. I also heard the Inside Pack Sports guys raving about the motor that Trey Thomas has. And I think, again, when you're looking to force pressure and disguise blitz packages, a guy that can get into the backfield in a heartbeat, he's going to get a whole lot of snaps in this system. You talk about Davin Van. I was just speaking about this to someone else the other day. I would have loved to see what Davin Van could have done in this particular system where you're sending even more guys. So there has to be a little bit less focus on Davin Van. You can't exactly double team him. I think Davin Van would have been a freak. He already was a freak, but even more so in this type of defense here. So I think Trey Thomas is a great get. I think this is one that a lot of NC State fans should be very excited about moving forward. And I know I kind of get into a habit of saying that about every guy, but it just reinforces my point. The fit into the scheme is far more important than where they are coming from. You can find great football players at every level of football, FCS, G5, whatever it may be. If you have a guy that's a right fit for your system, he can shine even if it is a couple steps up into the ACC. So I think both Jamal Johnson and Trey Thomas are very good gets for the NC State defense here in 2025.
And I want to say something here in terms of, Grace is saying, hey, we say we're excited about every guy and all that. I've seen flashes from Trey Thomas. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, this is a slam dunk. This is a home run in terms of I'm expecting an 8-sack year or something like that. I'm not going to say that. Right. I have seen flashes from what I've seen so far. I haven't finished going through all of what I saw from Temple last year in terms of what I should expect from Eliot, as well as what I should expect from some of these Temple transfers. I've seen the get off. I've seen the ability to convert speed to power. I've seen the kind of, he has some technique with his hands that it's like, okay, I get you. Keep coming. Keep coming, keep developing. And of course, that's of any college player. But I've seen the flash. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, hey, he's a great player. I'm not going to tell you, oh, he's just going to be a depth piece. I don't expect him to play it all next year. Because again, I have not seen anything out of our current edge group that I'm like, he can't possibly crack that rotation in a meaningful way. I'm not going to tell you that.
And I think there are instances where you can tell, but these 3 guys in particular, we talked about Sensible yesterday. When you're trying to establish your baseline of expectations on paper, all 3 of these additions make a lot of sense for a new coordinator looking for some type of familiarity to implore into the rest of the retained roster here. I see the vision, so to speak. So Jamal Johnson and Trey Thomas join NC State from the Temple Owls. We're certainly excited to see what they can do in a new look NC State defense. Coming up next, we're going to get into a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first Tuesday sponsor is Gametime. Attending the new 12-team college football playoff is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I can remember the excitement of past playoff games, but it's ramped up just that much more here in 2024 and 2025. Make new memories with the updated format and all of the extra teams and opportunities provided. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks, and it makes finding these opportunities that much easier. It filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, and you won't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I recently used Gametime to find tickets for an upcoming event, and browsing through deals was a breeze. I found great value in all kinds of different seats around the venue, and the Super Deal in particular stood out as the best value for the entire event. I love that I could see the seat views before buying, and the app will always show your total cost up front, so you receive zero surprise fees at checkout. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, and again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Middle portion of our Tuesday show. Now time for a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of something. 3 topics. We'll tell you exactly where we stand on them. First one here. Although both of NC State football's 2025 running back commits did not sign early, State has just recently picked up DeAndre Desor, the number 26 running back in the 2025 class. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. At the end of the day, you can never have enough good players. I know that, that's something that I say a lot, but have we not seen it time and time again, especially in the era of the portal? You cannot have enough good players. And don't get me wrong, I'm hearing lots of good things out of our backfield already. Obviously, we know what Hollywood is, right? The man is a Hellcat on the field. I mean, you give him the ball, and next thing you know, he's making something amazing happen. Kendrick Raphael, great compliment to that. And from what I'm hearing now, Duke Scott is one of those ones that, he's going to be making some Wolfpack fans very happy in the future. So we have a good backfield going into the year, but you can never have too many. You can never have too many, because anytime you think you have too many good players, you'll find out, especially at a position like running back, oh no, we got 1 or 2 injuries now. All of a sudden, we're having to play walk-ons. You don't want to be in that position. So I think this is a whole lot of something.
Desor really looks to be a great addition, super late in the 2025 recruitment cycle. If you just peek through his offer list, it's impressive. There's several high-name SEC teams on here: Ole Miss, Texas A&M, just to name a few. You see Pittsburgh, you see Syracuse, Penn State, Oregon, the Dirty Foot Club. There's a lot of really high-level programs that are all after the services of this kid, and we were able to flip him from West Virginia. Most recently committed to the Mountaineers. They're going through a head coaching change, and he thought the opportunity was right to seek other pastures, and he lands in our pasture. And I think this is a much-needed get for the running back room. Obviously, I already told you the 2 kids that we already had signed in the 2025 class did not end up signing. That was Kentrell Reinhardt and RJ Boyd. So NC State needed to go out and find a very capable guy in this class, and it sure looks like they found one in DeAndre Desor. For me, yes, a whole lot of something.
And I'm going to tell you this. I am still on the record. I don't care what anybody says. If anybody says anything about, hey, do you still want Kentrell Reinhardt here? Yes. Yes. I am telling you, I have watched that young man play, and he is the goods. He is one of those guys that I'm just like, how is he not an All-American? Where is his fifth start? That kid is different. But again, shout out to Mr. Desor. We're excited to see you.
Next one, Kenton, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball. Even though NC State baseball is returning the majority of the pitching staff and they're coming off of a run to Omaha, NC State baseball was not ranked in the preseason perfect game top 25. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. Whole lot of something. Because Eliot Avon always does his best work in the shadow. He is a Wolfpack coach. I've never seen a Wolfpack coach before, because he does his best work in the shadows. When everybody counts NC State out and is like, oh, man, this ain't the year. Oh, man, we're not good. All of a sudden, he just shows up and has all these pitchers start mowing guys down, starts getting some timely hitting, has guys making good decisions running the base path, and when they're fielding, and you're just like, wait a minute, are we really, really good now? Even though everybody thought we weren't. So I'm going to say a whole lot of something, because Elliot Avent, when he turns on that disrespect mode, you know, some people say they love Salty Dave. I love me some disrespected David Elliott. Feed me that. I need that in my life.
There are a few things I love more than an Elliot Avent team that has been written off by everyone else. I wouldn't exactly say this team has been completely written off, because I think you will see them get love in other preseason polls, but it did come as a little bit of a shock. They weren't in it at all, because yes, they did retain the majority of the pitching staff and they're coming off of a run to Omaha. That said, I think this team will be very young in the field and at the plate, that is, and perhaps that is the rationale. For me, though, overall, it's a whole lot of nothing, because it gives them the opportunity to prove themselves later on. And we all know in virtually any sport anyway, the preseason ranking really doesn't mean a whole lot. It's just kind of giving you credit for what you did last year. So I think that's kind of why it's weird to not see them in here, but nonetheless, it will be a whole lot of nothing, and I think they'll prove themselves very quickly. Last one here, NC State basketball. Through 14 games this year and 14 games last year, they're actually 3 games worse this year than they were last. They were 11-3 last year at 14 games, 8-6 this year. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
The record in and of itself is a whole lot of nothing, because they play some spectacular teams. Anybody who argues that this schedule is the same as what it was last year, put those drugs down. They're destroying your brain.
Yeah.
They're destroying your brain. But now, with that being said, it's the way in which these results are being achieved that is a whole lot of something. The record in and of itself, not a big deal. You played a lot of great teams, all that good stuff. The fact that we are screwing up things that has nothing to do with the other teams. The fact that we're an undersized team that's bad at free throw shooting. Nothing anybody does can make that a part that's not of us. That's something that is completely intrinsic. That's something that's completely inside. That's something that you cannot, there is not an opponent that all of a sudden that gets magically fixed against. That's between you and you. In the words of one Michael Jackson, you got to stare at the man in the mirror and ask him to change his ways in terms of what the problem is there. And that's not the only problem. There's just I wouldn't say a myriad, but there are a good amount of problems that are like, this is tough. So I would say the overall performance is more concerning than the record. The record, I would say a whole lot of nothing. The performance that earned the record, a whole lot of something.
Yeah, my answer is virtually the same. The record in itself is a whole lot of nothing, but the reason you are 3 games under this year where you were last year is because the schedule you played this year was harder. Now, you had 4 prime opportunities in the non-conference schedule. The problem is you went 0-4. You had 4 great opportunities and you squandered 4 great opportunities, and that is why your record is worse. Speaking to your point again here, Kenton, all the repetitive issues, that is what is a whole lot of something. We're seeing some of the same struggles we saw last year and then some. We're seeing some of the same rotations we saw last year and then some. You're really beginning to get into the meat and potatoes of the ACC schedule, and we're going to touch more on this in just a second, but you got to find answers quick, fast, and in a hurry, because you are 8-6. You are 1-2 so far in the ACC schedule, but on the horizon, you have the Dirty Foot Club. You have Duke in the not-so-distant future. You have teams like Clemson. You got to play the California teams. You got to play Virginia Tech on the road. Yes, the ACC conference is very hit and miss, but NC State, you got to find a way to get some hits here. Too many more misses, and you are very quickly in the same spot you found yourself last year at the end of the regular season. So it's a whole lot of nothing from a perspective of the record doesn't really matter, but definitely a whole lot of something because you're continuing to struggle in a lot of the same categories. Coming up next, we're going to touch more on NC State basketball. They welcome the Notre Dame Fighting Irish to the Lenny on Wednesday evening. They have got to find a way to right the ship. More on this after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second Tuesday sponsor is FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are now here and made so much better with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can place just a $5 bet and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Yes, that's right. $200 back in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need to place live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com in order to join today, and you'll get started with $200 back in bonus bets, win or lose. That's FanDuel.com in order to get started. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Last couple minutes of our Tuesday show. NC State men's basketball will welcome the Notre Dame Fighting Irish to the Lenovo Center on Wednesday evening. NC State's been squabbling a little bit, and I think anyone that's had their thumb on the pulse of NC State basketball so far in this young season has very quickly been able to establish that. They're 1-2 so far in ACC play, back-to-back losses to Virginia and a very ugly one on the road at Wake Forest on Saturday. But they return home, and they're facing a Notre Dame team that's pretty run-of-the-mill, pretty mediocre. I think they struggle a lot on defense. I think that should provide NC State some opportunity for a little bit of get-right-itis on the offensive side of the ball. However, Notre Dame's leading scorer is Marcus Burton, and he just recently missed an entire month due to injury, but he's back now. Of course he is. Just went off for 23 points against the Dirty Foot Club in a 1-point loss this past Saturday, but that was off the bench. I would expect that if he does come off the bench, it's probably going to be very quickly in a game like this one, but being that he is their leading scorer and an NBA type of talent, I think he'll probably be back in the lineup. So for NC State, that is your guy to mark all day long. Marcus Burton, Braden Shrewsbury is another one, actually the coach's son. He can light it up from deep. That is how Notre Dame is going to beat you. They're going to look to beat you with their guard play. They can shoot it pretty well from deep, and for NC State, you have to be able to run them off the perimeter.
We talked about this last year. They were a predominantly backcourt team, and Burton was the spear, the spear of that attack. He was the guy that was always going to have the ball in his hands the most. And I'll tell you what, the way in which he's grown this year, he takes care of the ball much better than he did last year. He makes much better decisions with the ball than he did last year. So we have to be able to close out on his space and make it tough for him to finish at the rim. If we can do those two things, we'll be just fine. And granted, it's one of those things that is simple, but it's not easy because he's a hellacious scorer. He is a guy that can get it at all three levels, but especially from deep. He will light you up. And if he takes you off the dribble, he's always looking to make the right play, be it the pass, be it a good finish at the rim. So again, you have got to have a situation where it all starts, where you're not giving him a ton of space. He's going to have the ball in his hands, bringing it up the court, setting up plays most of the time anyway. So it's not like you got to deny him off the ball or something like that. I would say just make it difficult. Make him think about every single dribble. And that's something that Coach Keats loves to do with his pressure anyway. So, if we can execute on that, we should be fine, but we'll see.
My largest interest in this game is NC State's front court. And this is something we discussed a couple weeks ago. The guard play for NC State has been nowhere near consistent or really effective for the majority of the season. Night in and night out, you're getting off-kilter performances from Jaden Taylor or MOC. Marcus Hill's been fairly consistent, but I don't think he's quite the type of guy that you can just give the ball to and he'll pull you out of a tight spot. So for me, Ben Middlebrooks and B2H, Brandon Huntley Hatfield, they might be the two most important players for NC State in this entire game. I would even offer up Ishmael Diouf to this equation because I think when NC State is already kind of small enough in the paint, when you're running out at Dontrez Styles to play an undersized 4, I think they should really lean on the front court in this one. Notre Dame is a lot more guard-oriented, so perhaps NC State should try and fight them with the inverse. Lean on your big men in the paint, control the boards, control the paint, and feed a guy like Middlebrooks on the block and see what he's able to accomplish against a very mediocre Notre Dame defense. This inconsistent play from the guard play for NC State, it's going to continue to kill you because you don't have a guy like a DJ Horn or even a Casey Morsell that can shoot it consistently. I know we've already talked about Breon Pass, but for whatever reason, he's just going to shoot 53% this year, and he's still not going to be able to get on the court that much. I don't think there's really anything inside of Breon's control that's going to be able to change that. The best thing he can do is just continue to knock down shots when the opportunities present themselves. So, in my opinion, I would love to see NC State be a lot more physical on the inside against Notre Dame because I think that can prove to be the difference in this one.
Yeah, at the end of the day, when you look at Notre Dame and you talk about, okay, what's their Achilles heel, right? Obviously, it's not Shrewsbury or Burton. So then you say, okay, well, what could it be? Where could you possibly get some pliability on this team? And the front court is what you're looking at. You know, don't get me wrong. Tay Davis is very good in his own right. He's a prolific scorer in his own right and all that good stuff. But to me, interior defense is where I think you can get something on this Irish defense. That's where I think you get something to find a way to, you know, they don't necessarily have the greatest shot blockers in the world to create an extremely tough time there. So if NC State can find a way to say, you know what, we're going to get to the paint, we're going to finish around the rim, you'll be fine. But, man, what we've seen so far this year, having tough time finishing by our bigs and the inability to convert at the line as well, you know, you're looking at a very, very tall order.
Desperately need to find a way to come away with this one, because when you lose a game like Virginia, where you had a double-digit lead on the road, you squander that one. You get steamrolled on the road against Wake Forest. Even though it's Notre Dame and they're likely going to finish somewhere in the middle to bottom of the conference, that raises the stakes for NC State. Because if you can't win this one, if you can't beat Notre Dame in this scenario at home, I got real bad news for you the rest of the season. So NC State's looking to bounce back from a 2-game losing streak in ACC play. Certainly looking forward to a good game in the Lenny on Wednesday evening. I'm thinking we do a post-game live for that one. I think it makes a lot of sense. Give all of our post-game thoughts following that one. So be sure to tune in with us tomorrow evening following this game, post-game live right here on our YouTube channel. Of course, we'll tweet out the link as well. So that'll do it for us here on Tuesday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button, drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us your thoughts on the 2 new Temple additions out of the transfer portal, and anything else you have on your mind, drop that in the box as well. Mash that subscribe button. We'll see you tomorrow night on Wednesday evening. Until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.